Hi, this is Ian Khan, and welcome to the Ian Khan Show. This week, we're going to talk about credit unions. I was recently at the World Conference of Credit Unions Worldwide, and it was an incredible few days that I spent with tens of credit unions, trying to understand their challenges, trying to understand their opportunities, and where everything is going. Stay tuned.
I see the world in a different way, and you need to see what I see. We must recognize that we came from a very good place. As humans, as people, as a society, as a race, we've been amazing so far, and we should love us. But nothing remains the same forever. Things change, seasons change, life changes, and change is a constant. We live on the belief that tomorrow will be better, don't we all? Isn't that why we live, why we survive, why we build, and why we dream? The future is approaching us very fast. This is a technology-driven future, a future of rapid change. But this is not necessarily a bad thing, because it brings with it a huge transformation and a new era in human history. To get there, we must walk on a specific path and not just choose short-term happiness, but create sustainable success. We must start thinking differently, start thinking loud, start thinking big. The time to do that is now, right now, because tomorrow is being created right this moment. This is the future where people will be happier, healthier, live longer, and stronger. My name is Ian Khan, and I'm driven to unlocking your potential by showing you what the future holds and to help you get there with a proven process for success. My work as an author and a documentary filmmaker helps me convey ideas that can create real impact. Over the last 20 years, I have worked with hundreds of organizations in helping them understand the future and how to succeed. I've worked across the world, from Dubai to Denmark and Seoul to San Francisco, challenging CEOs, challenging heads of departments and governments in pushing their limits to think differently. Using a proven methodology of the 7 axioms of value creation as a foundation and deriving insights from rapidly evolving technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, and more, I can help you understand the future of industry. Come join me. Let's build the future together, right now, right here, today.
Hi, and welcome to the Ian Khan Show. In this show, I talk about things that I see that are transformative. I take an industry and talk about some of the challenges that I see, some of the opportunities that I see. I talk about things that are interesting and hoping that it finds the right people, the right industries and right organizations who want to create change. So today's episode, I'm going to talk about credit unions. There's literally thousands of credit unions in the world. In the US alone, I believe it's about 5,000 credit unions that operate, that provide financial services to millions of people. Now, the credit union industry is very unique. It started about 175 years ago, and the credit unions since worldwide have progressed and permeated the culture, the fabric of who cities and people are and what they do. So credit unions are a member-based organization, which means you have to be a member of a credit union in order to leverage the services they provide. I'm not here to talk about what the credit union industry does, but I think that element is already known. So let me tell you about last week. So last week at the Bahamas, at WOCU, or the World Credit Union organization, one of the largest events about the credit union industry, one of the most well-attended conferences in the credit union industry, and so it was very interesting to be there. And this year it was 3 conferences in one. It was the World Council of Credit Unions, it was the Caribbean Credit Unions, and it was the World Organization of Credit Unions that all came together to put this conference together. So over I believe it was 4 days of content, 4 days of insights, 4 days of amazing information that credit unions can utilize and change their future and change what they're doing. So a lot of great keynotes by some great people. So that was interesting. I had reached out to the industry through a partner agency and company called CU Ledger. CU Ledger is a credit union-owned organization that focuses on blockchain, and they're trying to solve the identity crises within industry in general, with the credit unions in specific. And identity is a key piece to how we use services, how we utilize different services in the context of today's world and the future. There's so many different things that we can talk about, but I want to talk about 3 different parts. First is the challenges within the credit union industry and what I saw as the biggest challenges right now and what credit unions must do immediately to change their state in order to remain relevant and to remain in business. We'll also talk about some emerging technologies that are on the horizon, and what the future, and thirdly, what the future looks like for credit unions. So stay with me and let's talk about credit unions. Okay, so we're talking about credit unions. Here is literally the biggest challenge that's facing credit unions today is acquiring new customers, acquiring new members. And there are a few reasons why this is a big problem. First of all, the demographic is changing, the member base is changing, the expectations that the newer generations have is changing. So there's definitely more still members, there's definitely still growth in some parts of the credit union industry, but overall there's a little bit of a decline in the pressure on credit unions to acquire new members. Now, depending on the region, depending on the country, depending on an existing member base, there could be a few different variables to it, but the constant challenge is how do credit unions maintain and grow their member base. If you look at large banks, traditional banking, the banking industry has a lot more money to spend on marketing, on opening a new branch or opening tens of new branches in your neighborhood, and that's affecting credit unions to some extent. There's also the challenge of the newer generation of emerging people, whether you call them millennials, the post-millennial generation, essentially the newer generation that just banks and uses financial services in a different way. So there's got to be a strategy to tap into that market, to keep them engaged, and to make sure that they are still part of the credit union, that their father, their mother, their parents, their grandparents have been part of within that community that they're living in. Now, in some rural areas, some particularly areas where banks don't penetrate as much, great credit unions can still be relevant, but they still have to offer things such as online access to money, ability to transfer money, services that are powered by apps, which is so common. So whether you call it internet banking or internet services, you've got to be able to offer these services to your existing and the new clientele. That's another factor. So in addition to just growing what you're doing as a credit union, the ability to offer services that are comparable to a huge extent with banks, with financial institutions, is a big factor for success. The third one being, how healthy is a credit union? How healthy are they in terms of their processes, in terms of their work, in terms of their overall ability as an organization? Now, a credit union is an entity. It's a service providing entity. It has its own departments. It has an accounting department. It has a back end. It has a processing. It's got management. It's got all these different elements that any company, any organization, any bank has. And if credit unions don't pay attention to optimizing that and creating efficiency within the organization, it is going to be difficult to go into the future where efficiency is much required, and technology can help power a lot of that. So let's talk about a couple of those things. here's an observation that I saw at the World Conference, the World Credit Union Conference, is that a sizable majority of credit unions that I met were not technologically forward. They were not technologically enabled. They were not 100% digital. Their journey of being on the path of being digital did not exist. And that is a problem. It's a problem that if you're going into the future that is completely digital powered, which means your marketing is digital powered, your advertising is digital, your customer acquisition is digital, your engagement is digital, everything you do is digital, because that's what the time and era demands. Because your customer is on a cell phone today, and they need to be reached through advertising on their device, right? They don't need door knockers anymore. And that's what has happened. The newer generation, the aware generation, not just the newer generation, but everybody out there, the customer out there has transformed. And they're using devices. I am using a device. I use tens of apps to do different things. Don't you use those apps? If you even work in a credit union, don't you use any app at all to access services? Of course you do. And that's what's happening, because technology has had such a profound impact on what we do. It's the demands on businesses have changed. The demands on organizations that provide services have changed. And as a result, the demands on credit unions have now changed. So you've got to be able to reach your customer digitally, because the customer is digitally powered. Now, this has an effect on many other things, because it absolutely doesn't mean that you have to have an app now in order to be 100% successful. This is one indicator of the digital journey that your organization needs to have, the credit union needs to have. Are your processes in place? Are your processes streamlined? Your customer acquisition strategy, your delivery strategy, your in-branch strategy, your strategy after the customer has walked in and they have left. What's your strategy to remain engaged with that customer? So we can't just complain that there's no engagement if you've let everything go. The journey doesn't end when the customer banks with you, when the customer comes to the branch and the customer utilizes some services. The journey does not end there, and we have to keep that in mind. For credit unions that have a completely missing strategy, a completely missing digital identity or a digital footprint, hey, it's time to work on that right now, because if you don't, you're going to be irrelevant in the next few years, because your customers will start leaving you, your members will start quitting on you, because somebody else will provide them with the ease, with the comfort, with the capacity, and with the capability of doing things like they want to be done. The customer wants to be addressed in a certain way. The customer wants to be talked in a certain way. And you have to remember that as a credit union, as an organization, you need to speak to your customers the way your customers want to be spoken to. If you're still doing things because you think it is for you that the customer is there, that the customer should come to you, it's the wrong notion, it's the wrong idea. And that is a challenge with an industry that needs to be changed. That's a mindset that needs to be changed right away. If you don't change it, you're going to suffer, you're going to be in pain, and I don't want you to be in pain. I want you to be successful as a credit union. Now, one area of technology that's super confusing right now for credit unions is the emergence of cryptocurrencies. Now, we're not talking about adopting cryptocurrencies right away, but we're talking about things such as Facebook's Libra, or we're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a bunch of other services that are powered by digital technologies, by cryptocurrency related technologies, and how they impact what you do as a credit union. Now, we're definitely not at a stage where cryptocurrencies are mainstream, they're being used as digital cash or any of that. But keep in mind that in the next few years, maybe the next 2 to 5 years, digital cash, digital currencies of some sort might be used to a huge extent because the trend has already started. It has not caught mainstream adoption, but that doesn't mean it never will. So stop fighting that fight against innovation and technology and saying it's never going to happen. It will happen. It's like anything else within technology. So let me tell you something. Technology follows a curve. It's a curve of adoption, it's a curve of growth, it's a curve of decline, it's a curve of maturity, and all of those things are followed by every technology in the world, where it's adopted and where it goes out of phase. Now this whole thing can be 2 years, it could be 20, it could be 100 years. And that's what we have to look at it from. Cryptocurrencies are at a very initial stage of development. They're at a very initial stage of being adopted. So in the larger journey of life, they are at a starting phase. In the next 2 to 5 years, cryptocurrencies, whether the ones that are in the market now, or there might be something new that comes up tomorrow, they will be adopted. They will be adopted by a certain number of people, banks, institutions, organizations. Today, countries are planning to come up with their own cryptocurrencies. Banks are planning to come up with their own versions of digital cash because they recognize the importance of what exactly is happening. And so should you. And so should you. You should start thinking about the emergence of technologies that are powered by digital cash-related technologies and how they could affect your business. Now, if you're not having, as a credit union, if you're not, or an organization, if you're not having a monthly meeting with management, or digital cash, digital currencies is not a bullet point in your regular discussions with your board, with your leadership, then you're far behind. You're far behind. You're literally far behind, and you need to change that. How can you not have something on the hot list of discussion in your most important meetings at a regular basis? How could you ignore that? How could you not have that? Come on, you've got to put that on your list. And that's the biggest recommendation that I can do for you and give to you, is things that are changing the world outside that can affect you in a very bad manner needs to be on your discussion list every week, every month. No more than a month. Every month you've got to have a digital meeting. You've got to have a meeting about your organization's digital transformation, and you need to talk to people within your leadership, within your organization, within your credit union, with the board about what that means. It doesn't mean you'll implement it. It doesn't mean you'll adopt it. It just means that it's on your radar and you're watching it. You're watching every trend, everything that's happening with respect to that piece of news. So please create a Google alert, put it on your radar, and talk about digital cash, digital currencies as a disruptor in every leadership meeting at least once a month. What has happened in this month with respect to digital currencies that's important for you? What new invention has come out? What new innovation has come out? What has Ethereum done? What has Bitcoin done? Has there been a new fork? And all of these things need to be in your mind as a leader in order to lead the organization that's depending on you to create this change. How could you ignore that? So please do that. I'm confident that you will. It's very important that education and learning be a part of your everyday life. Learning is so important because today things are changing fast. Things are rapidly developing. Things are doubling every year, or innovation is doubling every year. And unless you don't learn and you're not on a constant path of learning, you're going to be struggling in the next few years. You're going to be in a lot of pain. You might not have a job. And so you've got to learn. You've got to learn about concepts, ideas. It doesn't have to be formal education. Now, I know a lot of you have been in the industry for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you're veterans of the credit union industry. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be ready for change. That doesn't mean that you cannot learn something new or learn a way of doing things in a new way. Let me tell you, if you fail to change, change is going to make sure that you fail. That's what's going to happen. If you fail to change, change is going to make sure that you fail, because change is a constant. Change is always happening. The industry is changing, demographic is changing, customers are changing. There's a revolution. And I said this at the World Conference. There's a revolution that's happening outside of your doors, outside of your four walls in which you have your credit union. There's literally a madness out there. And unless you don't ready yourself, unless you don't either ready yourself and become part of that revolution, somebody's going to knock at that door and break it down. And they're going to take your fort. They're going to take your fort, they're going to take your credit union, and it will be no longer existing. And that's what's going to happen. And I'm not shy of telling you the truth, because that's what reality is. And I think you need to embrace that, acknowledge it, and be accountable for the change that you need to create within your industry. Unless you don't do that, nobody's going to come for your rescue. Credit unions can totally leverage a unique model for success. I've developed a future readiness score that's applicable to different industries, every single industry, and it measures not your digital transformation. It doesn't measure your digital anything or technology anything, but it measures your readiness for the future. So we have about 200 plus questions within that questionnaire that we ask clients to fill out, and we understand by all those questions where you are at with respect to your journey for the future. How ready are you with respect to technology? How ready are you with respect to people? How ready are you with respect to creating a culture? How ready are you to be a leader? And there's all these different questions within that readiness score that tell us what exactly you are doing right now, and how relevant and successful can you be in the future, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you need to address right now. So that is available online, and I'll put a link for that underneath in the description as well. But fill out that survey and find out what your digital transformation journey looks like. It's very important to understand if you are ready for the future or not. It doesn't really matter who you are as a credit union. It doesn't matter if you're big or small, if you're rural or you're in a big city. It really doesn't matter what you've done until now. All that matters is, what is your approach for tomorrow? What is your approach for the future? Are you future ready? Are you available to think about what the possibilities of the future are? Imagine you want to go on a journey, and you want to drive to some place, and you want to go on this long journey that's going to take a few days, and you get into a car, and you don't know what that vehicle is. You just look at a structure, you say, hey, this is a car I'm going to go and drive. You don't check for gas, you don't check for the tire pressure, nothing. And you know that along the way there's going to be many different things that are going to happen. You're going to pass through a forest, you're going to pass through a lake, you're going to pass through a desert. And all of those things may bring different challenges to you. And you say to yourself, well, I don't want any water, I don't want any food. I'll figure it out along the way. I'll make stops, I'll make pit stops along the way, and I'll figure out how to stay alive. And off you go on this multi-day journey in your car. Now, I don't know how you will survive that journey without being ready for it, without preparing for it, without making sure that you've got enough food for the next 2 to 3 days, in case there's no pit stops, in case there's no stores, in case you don't find any food on the way. You would put enough gas in that car in order to reach that destination, or you would put a couple of extra jerry cans in the back, because you don't know if there is a gas station on the route to your destination. And it's called being ready. It's called readiness. It's called being ready for the possibilities of tomorrow. And then there's a huge possibility that you will actually reach your destination if you've stocked your car really nicely, you've made sure the car is functional, operational, it works, everything is great. The driver is great if you're the driver, or if you have passengers, that everybody has the right expectations of what to expect along the route as you go about your journey. That's literally what it is. That's the journey of an organization. That's the journey of a credit union in order to be successful. My advice to you is look at your digital transformation journey right now. Look at your digital journey to evaluate different areas of your business. It's not only about having technology to do something at your work, but technology is an enabler for processes, for results, and that's what technology does. I never recommend that you get a technology and then you start understanding what it can do for you. No, prove a business case and find a way to make it more efficient. Find a way to make things faster, more efficient, reduce cost, and all of these things that businesses need, organizations need, you need. Find a reason to bring technology in so that your customer and member interactions can be better. Your retention rates can be better. Your recruitment rates for new members can be better, and so that your members are happy with what they have through the technology that powers your credit union. I'm Ian Khan. I'm an industry advocate. I help understand what the future brings and how disruptive technologies can change our life. But beyond that, it's about what the future is and how can we deal with it without technology, of course, but also with technology. And so the answer is not just technology, but about that journey that I just explained. How ready are we for that journey of tomorrow? I offer the Future Readiness score, the Future Readiness assessment that helps you understand where you are with respect to being ready about the future. Talk to me about it and I'll tell you more. For now, this is it. These are my thoughts, ideas, recommendations, suggestions for the credit union industry coming out of the World Credit Union Conference. And if you need more knowledge or insight or anything I can help with, reach out to me, visit my website, and start talking to me. My website is www.iankhan.com, or you can reach out to me directly over my email, ian@iankhan.com. Follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and let's find a way to engage and spread the message of being digitally aware and being digitally forward when it comes to change. Here's to your future and mine and ours. I say that if you want to do something, do it right here, right now, and today. And that's what my t-shirt says as well, is now, here, and today, because there is no tomorrow. Tomorrow is far, far away, and you've got to make these decisions and choices right here, today, in order to be successful. All the best, my friend, and we'll talk to you soon.